Christopher Nolan's Memento was the director's first studio film which released in the year 2000, and the project was made on a budget of only $5 million. The film has become a cult classic in the mind of many Nolan and film noir fans, introducing the filmmaker as someone who could go on to accomplish things on a much bigger scale. After the release of Following, Nolan was able to display his creative persona as one which could grapple with the physical and mental temporality of filmmaking. But in Memento, it wasn't just a case of showing his intelligence with the camera, but rather he could use these techniques to represent an emotionally damaged character. Leonard Shelby, played by Guy Pearce, is my favourite Nolan protagonist because his character is not only the sole focus of the entire story and its narrative structure, but he's also a representation of the audience trying to piece together every part of the puzzle. This video essay continues my Christopher Nolan Marathon, where I create content on every film in the director's filmography, including Tenet when it releases later this year. Over the summer, I will also be covering news and information surrounding Christopher Nolan's latest film. To stay up to date with all of these videos, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoy this video, remember to leave it a like rating. Without further ado, let's analyse how Christopher Nolan approaches the troubled protagonist in Memento. All of Christopher Nolan's main characters in his films have had some kind of traumatic experience that has shaped them into the person they have become. They are usually defined by this trauma and have a particular skill set that they will use while devoting their life to reconciling with the past. He tackles the memory of his characters who are lost in their own thoughts or thinking in the past, and these elements make the movie go in one way instead of another. In the case of Memento, we soon realise that the entire narrative is going backwards. But how does Nolan make this less of a visual gimmick and more of a crucial storytelling device to fully capture the emotional nature of his protagonist? In every film, the director changes his approach, but he still presents the character as someone who is troubled by their past or a concurrent issue in time. How Memento tackles this concept is through the use of a fragmented and non-linear narrative structure. The use of a non-linear narrative is nothing new, as it has often been used in the past to slowly reveal relationships amongst characters and circling the story back to a previous event. Such a structure has also been used by other directors like Quentin Tarantino in Pulp Fiction, but in Memento it's completely different because the non-linear narrative structure puts the audience into the shoes of the protagonist. Through this structure, the viewers become detectives themselves. For a long time they're struggling as much as Leonard does, and this is used to create a coherent narrative out of all the given pieces. Nolan gives the film noir genre's tendency to confound the viewer's expectations a conceptual twist by linking the flow of the narrative to the condition of the protagonist. The film's sequences are divided into half colour and half black and white, alongside a very important opening credit scene. The function of these different types of scenes and the way they are arranged in Memento is how Nolan fully places the audience into the shoes of Leonard Shelby. The interesting thing about the colour sequences, which show the main story of Leonard searching for the murderer of his wife as a series of segments appear on screen, is how they are conveyed in reverse. Each of these rather small chunks represent the complete length of Leonard's memory capabilities. The story is told backwards, and scene by scene the audience gets more information about the reasons for the murder of Teddy in the very first sequence of the film. The viewers find new pieces of the puzzle in every scene, but the meaning of most of these pieces is not evident from the sequence they first appear in. Just like a detective who step by step gets more evidence while investigating, the viewers have to be extraordinarily attentive and wait for the sequence explaining a particular hint hidden in one of the preceding scenes. Thus, a broken car window shown in one of the very first colour sequences of the film is not explained until we watch a later scene, which means that the viewers have to wait approximately 50 minutes to get the essential background information. These repetition of events launch the viewer repeatedly into Leonard's moment-to-moment existence by beginning again and again, as if it hasn't begun before. In this way, the movie reflects Leonard's own struggle to make sense of what's happening to and around him. Nolan has applied the reverse structure with all of these repetitions to confuse the audience and to put them into the head of the protagonist, who suffers anterograde amnesia. Besides the colour sequences which run in reverse order and tell the main story, there are also black and white scenes in Memento. These scenes alternate with the colour sequences and run in forward order. They show Leonard in his hotel room talking on the phone and telling the oddly parallel story of Sammy Jenkins, illustrated for the viewer with visual flashbacks. The story told in the black and white scenes can be considered a frame plot that helps the viewers to understand when the things described in the colour scenes actually happen. The spectators find out that all the events described and shown in the black and white scenes happened before the story told in the colour scenes, so the black and white sequences are more or less a successively told flashback. And intentionally, the final black and white scene smoothly changes to colour and perfectly fits into the next colour scene, which is the last scene shown in the film. As far as cinematography is concerned in both of these sequences, we get an interesting contrast between them. The black and white sequences offer a very objective view of Leonard's character. The audience watches the protagonist in his hotel room from a third person or security camera point of view. The colour scenes, on the other hand, are very subjective from Leonard's point of view. The camera is always over his shoulder or right behind him in these scenes, and there are many close-ups of the main character. The audience is shown details that only Lenny can see. Through this way of filming the protagonist, a very close relationship between the viewers and Lenny is constructed. No doubt understanding the structure of Memento is not easy, especially when you're watching the film for the very first time. But it's interesting to see how Christopher Nolan tries to help the viewers comprehend the narrative of the film, and by doing so we understand more greatly what's going through the protagonist's mind. Already in the first few minutes of Memento, there are several hints which can be considered a helping hand for the viewers or a guide to the narrative. In particular, the opening scene of Christopher Nolan's film is the only scene that literally runs backwards and is shown in slow motion. When I rewatched the film recently, I couldn't help but be reminded of the reverse of the gun scene from the Tenet trailer. It's like Nolan had planted this visual idea early on in his career, but in Memento, this scene is probably supposed to help the viewers understand the narrative structure. We see a Polaroid undevelop and a bullet fly back up the barrel of a gun as Teddy comes back to life after the sound of a shot. So the viewers are reversely shown the revenge murder of Teddy committed by Leonard Shelby, an incident that actually takes place at the very end of the plot, seen from a chronological point of view. We see Lenny killing the man for whom he will be searching throughout the entire film. By recognising that everything in this particular sequence is running backwards, the viewers are perfectly prepared for the reverse narrative structure throughout the rest of the story. Their superstition about the reverse narrative is also confirmed for the very first time in the third colour scene of Memento, when the viewers realise that they are watching parts of the sequence they've already watched before. But additionally, they now get information about what happened in advance. There's also a brilliant use of detail in the opening shot which helps solidify this meaning to the audience. This involves the opening frame of the film showing the vanishing colours of a Polaroid, which can be compared to Lenny's condition. Every new memory he tries to make is lost after a few minutes and cannot be recalled. This is why his character has to constantly take photos, write down information, or tattoo bold notes onto different parts of his body. After 15 minutes, his brain is as blank as the Polaroid he holds at the end of the opening scene. It's Nolan's appliance of these sequences that brilliantly introduces the audience to Lenny's amnesia problem through intelligent narrative techniques. When looking at Memento as a story, it's obvious that there is a conventional noir and revenge story behind it. A husband, former private investigator, seeks revenge on the person who murdered his wife and left him with his condition. The police couldn't help him find the murderer. The only help he has comes from a suspiciously motived friend and a tough female barmaid, who certainly has some of the character traits of the typical femme fatale. The whole story, and this is also typical of the film noir genre, plays in an absolutely anonymous, bleak and empty environment that heightens the loneliness of the protagonist. Typical moods of classic film noir such as alienation, bleakness, pessimism, guilt and in particular paranoia can be found in Memento. The story is full of noirish flashbacks and it has no happy ending, but what makes Memento a special film is how the uniquely structured narrative and blend of genre display Nolan's key attention to Leonard Shelby. The amnesia problem of the protagonist and his chaotic and often weak attempts to step by step put the puzzle of his wife's murder together are intelligently linked to the way the story is told. Nolan has approached narrative structure using time very differently from film to film. In Batman Begins, we get flashbacks to show Bruce Wayne in his troublesome beginnings. In Inception, time is used in different dream levels to show the differing effects it has on the characters and mainly DiCaprio's cop. In Interstellar, time progresses at different rates on different planets, and Cooper ends up completing his mission and returning to his daughter, who is now in the final days of her life. In Memento, the reverse narrative structure of the main plot, with its conclusion being revealed, are supposed to make the viewers feel just as confused as Leonard is. The closer the film gets to the end, the less the viewers are confused, because they can remember things that Leonard can't. It's because of this unique and complex style of character storytelling that the film not only requires but also deserves multiple viewings. Overall, Memento is the film in Nolan's filmography that has me relishing over the idea of what he will do with John David Washington's character in Tenet. Time will soon tell how Nolan will use the narrative in that film to convey his story and themes to the audience. But let me know down below what you thought of Christopher Nolan's Memento, alongside things that you find especially unique about his first studio film. My next video in this Christopher Nolan marathon continues with Insomnia, an adaptation of the 1997 Norwegian film of the same name. In particular, I will be focusing on how Nolan combines genres to create something original. This video will be released next week, alongside much more content on the director's extended filmography coming over the next month. To stay up to date with this series along with all the latest news on Tenet, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a like rating. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.